Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host, Brett
Gilliland.
Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
The Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland. Today I've got Curtis Francois with me. Curtis, how you doing?
Great.
Awesome.
Great to be with you today.
Well, we're excited to have you, man. I've been wanting to have you on here for a couple years, and so St. Louis Sports Commission. I've seen you there speak a few times, and was lucky enough to get introduced to you. I don't even remember how we tracked you down. We tracked you down somehow and got you here today. So thanks for being with us.
Glad to be with you.
Yeah. So like every podcast, I always start with what's made you the man you are today. I know it's a big open question, but I think you got a great story, and I'm excited to share it with our listeners today. But what helped you grow up to be the man you are today?
Wow, and that's a big question, for sure. But I mean, I think at that level, you're going to look at faith, family, and friends. I mean, no doubt about it, and that in that order. The involvement that has probably brought me the most notoriety would be the racetrack, and that was honestly something that I did through the faith part of my life, and it has just been a heck of a journey since the beginning. But we just open the door every day and see which way we're being taken, and take it really one day at a time. And it's been an unbelievable journey so far.
That's awesome. So talk about that a little bit more in depth. So a little bit of history of the track. I believe it closed in 2012, correct?
Yes, it actually closed in 2010.
Okay.
It closed Dover Motorsports, which was is still, or I guess it was purchased by SMI Motorsports. That was an interesting time in the life of really in motorsports. So much change going on, and Dover, who owned the racetrack there, ultimately decided it just didn't fit their mission anymore, and they closed the racetrack in 2010. Last race there was a Busch Series race, and so in that time, you got to remember what we were coming out of with the Great Recession and all of that, and all of a sudden this massive, relatively new facility comes online.
Yeah.
And my background's in racing, but just so happens that my background is in real estate development in the Metro East.
Yeah.
And really the right guy at the right time to have perspective to look at the opportunity versus the failure. And it was unfortunate because the track was only 13 years old at that point in time. And it really never got the benefit of I believe, of the entire St. Louis community, St. Louis region, Metro East, understanding what a fully engaged and optimized racetrack could do for a community. I knew it because as a racer, I was traveling all over the country years and years before. And when it closed, I was not looking for something else to do. And it just kind of happened that I was drawn to that. And that was the faith component of it, really, is that it felt like I was being put in the right position to where I could go and make a meaningful difference just based on my life's past.
Yeah, because if I know the story correctly, you can correct me along the way here. I mean, so you had a successful company, you were doing well. You didn't have to do this, right? But there is passion, there is faith behind that. And so walk our listeners through the Worldwide Technology Raceway. I didn't say it earlier, that they're here in the Metro East, Illinois side of St. Louis. And so it's the only racetrack on the planet, which I thought was amazing. I even said to Jeff over here before, imagine saying you had something that only one on the planet has done, and it's hosts an NHRA event, a NASCAR Cup Series, and an INDYCAR Series.
That's right. It's
amazing.
It is amazing to think how far we've come. I remember in 2012 is when we reopened, and I took control of the track in 2011. And I honestly knew a fair amount about racing from behind the steering wheel. I knew absolutely nothing about racing from the operational standpoint, so I found out.
Yeah.
I thought I did.
Exactly. But I knew a lot more than you did, huh?
Yes, but we got ready in 2012, and it was just a passion project for us that one way or another we had an opportunity with the NHRA, which is the largest sanctioning body in the world for drag racing. And St. Louis is a really good drag racing market.
Yeah.
So we had that opportunity, and it did not want to let the NHRA down, and went on to sign a 20-year agreement with them to host NHRA events, and that's what I had. That's how we reopened the racetrack, and that was where we planted our pole there to get started.
Yeah.
Was with the NHRA.
Was it the racetrack was open and then that happened, or did we get that done and now I'll commit to the racetrack?
Yeah, so the way that it really went down is when I was in 2011, I was right there at the decision point of whether I was going to move forward and purchase the racetrack. And so I met with, at the time, the president of NHRA up in Indianapolis at their national event up there, a very successful one. And, we struck up a conversation which then has now became a great relationship. And I said, I'll do this if you'll do that. And he said, I'll do that if you do that. And one of those kind of conversations. And I felt like there was a man that I could trust, Tom Compton. And so that's how it started. And along the way, he, with so many others along the way, have done what they said they would do. And here we are today because of those relationships and people that have just leaned into our project.
Yeah. So talk about that. When you see there's a racetrack that comes on the market and you kind of get this idea, maybe it blossoms and you water it a little bit, it feeds in your brain, and then you think a little bit more about it, you're driving. How did you build the team, but also maybe even the confidence in you? I think you said earlier, focus on the opportunity, not the failure, right? So walk us through that on how you build the belief in self and others that we can take this project. It failed before, but we're not going to focus on that, and build what it is today.
Yeah, I think the most obvious thing that came to light was the passion of the fans in the St. Louis region for motorsports, and in particular at that time was in drag racing. And that was encouraging, extremely encouraging. So before we ever reopened, we had a work day. And that work day was, this racetrack had been sitting, and racetracks do not do well sitting because the grass and weeds continue to grow and the paint continues to peel. And so we had to make sure that we had a large effort to bring this thing back to life. And as soon as the weather got decent in the spring, we did a Facebook post and said, hey, all those that are willing to come out to the racetrack and lend a hand, we've got some work that needs to be done. And we were overwhelmed with people that came out. Hundreds came out to assist us in just reopening. That was one of the first very encouraging moments where I thought, wow, we're really on to something here. Prior to that, I think, before opening, I certainly understood what the facility was capable of. And I know that there is a great motorsports base in St. Louis and the St. Louis region that had yet to be unlocked. That's what I got comfortable enough with to dive in. And we certainly saw proof of that early spring in 2012.
Yeah. Is that when you had that moment, is that where you thought, okay, this is really going to happen? And then if so, what was the vision, that kind of what you, I don't know if you're this way, you start with the end in mind, right? Did you start with this massive vision of what you thought it could become?
I really didn't in this situation. Yeah. Usually in my real estate development company, we're very much, you start with, here's where we're going to get to, because you're developing a project that generally has a relatively direct path to get there. What I can tell you about our path and our direction was we had a goal to figure out how to make this track successful. And I had a thought in mind of where I wanted to go. And I thought I knew generally how to get there. What I can tell you was we went way further than I thought was going to happen, and we did not take the direction at all that I thought.
It's fine. I was just had somebody earlier, we were talking about that. There's the business plan, and then there's just the will, right? I'm just going to get it done. Yeah. And it sounds like that's really what it is.
That was very much was one way or another we were going to make this happen. And before we actually got all the way into the project, my years of kind of being involved in the Metro East real estate market allowed me to contact many of the people on the community side and on the political side and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, but I need everyone pulling the rope together. And that then went on to be the fans as well. And so as I look back on that, I can't think of a single instance where people that made a commitment to help have not helped. They all have. So that's boy, those are great stories to have.
Yeah.
They don't all work out that way.
Yeah.
But what a blessing it's been for us to have great friends and partners to help us make this come to fruition.
Talk about the economic impact, right? I mean, it's a big deal for us to have this in our community. So tell our listeners about that.
So the impact is it's both on the immediate community around me, but also I think for the Metro East, St. Clair, Madison County, it's certainly a prestige point for the counties. I mean, we have this wonderful asset of Scott Air Force Base, and the community is filled with great community leaders and people, just wonderful folks. And to me, I always felt like it deserved a little bit more. And now to be the facility with a cup race, with an INDYCAR race, with concerts and major league things going on like that, it certainly put we put our flag in and said, hey, we're here to do something and show the country a little bit more about what Southwestern Illinois is all about.
Well, you're putting it on a map in a major way, right? I mean, television, just that alone, you see the flyover and it shows the yards from the amazing view that you have there, and always first-class events, man. And so talk about the process to get INDYCAR, NASCAR, kind of go back to the beginning if you can, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that own racetracks that say, I want to have a NASCAR event one day, right?
Yes.
So how did you do that?
Well, there's a lot of things linked together that made that come to fruition for sure. You look at, we had success on the drag racing side, and that then started to open some ideas and some eyes that something different's going on. I was not absentee at all. I was there every day, and at the very beginning was greeting the fans, every fan that I could that came through the gates, and wanted to make sure that there was a clear differentiation between what was and what is now. And so we just started building that foundation. And that success that we saw on the drag racing side let me know that, hey, there's depth here in the fan base. Let's see what we can really find. And so in the next year, in 2013, we hosted a open wheel race on the oval track, because the rumors were out there that the oval track had been torn up, or all kinds of things that happen on podcasts, and people they're guessing what's going on. Well, so just to put that to bed, we hosted a race in 2013 with Silver Crown cars. Again, I don't know the first thing about hosting a race. I'd raced on that racetrack in an INDYCAR lights years before, but we made that happen. And then in 2013, that went off well, and it got the attention and actually got me in the position to where I could go talk to NASCAR. So
it got you in the door.
Got me in the door because something's different going on, and hey, there is some news coming out of Gateway Motorsports Park at the time. And so started talking with NASCAR about bringing back a truck race. And, I didn't know much about any of that. I never really was involved in much in the world of NASCAR. I raced a little bit in that, but not much. And so, but met a really great person at NASCAR. And we had conversations about bringing the truck race back, but we also had conversations about the vision and long term. And so that's where that foundation was built for our relationship with NASCAR. We ended up hosting the truck race in 2014, large crowds, and that is not an easy freestanding event to promote. Usually a NASCAR truck race is along with a cup race or an Xfinity race. And so out of nowhere we have, we have fans filling the stands, in much greater capacity than they had at other racetracks around the country. So that got me in the position. I'm going on and on here.
No,
it's
this
quite
is
a
exactly what
here,
I want. This is exactly, keep going.
So that got us in the position to where I had an opportunity to go and talk to the president of IMS, Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Okay,
And at that time, that was owned by the Holmans, and really was an opportunity to again tell that story about, hey, we're having some really good success with NASCAR. St. Louis has a huge INDYCAR following, and come on back and give us a shot. And that led to a lot of different conversations, but ultimately they said, we'd love to come back, and they came out to do a test. They said, we're all in. And along the way there, I realized that, hey, this is the top tier of open wheel racing, and we couldn't stumble. And out of our own our own decision-making process, we decided to repave the racetrack so that when INDYCAR came back, there was no chance for a hiccup.
Yeah.
And our repave has gone on to be one of the best in the country. Tracks come and look at ours now because a local company here leaned in with pride, the Chris brothers, and said, hey, we're going to do something special. And the family was there making it happen. So that happens, and now we've shown INDYCAR we're going to do it right. So you can imagine the next steps. That gets me into the conversation then ultimately, because we have huge crowds once again. Bommarito, the Bommarito family, Bommarito Automotive Group came alongside of that race, and ultimately were the entitlement. And so now we've got the St. Louis community involved, and so that was great. And that opened that conversation ultimately to start talking to NASCAR about a cup race.
That's a lot. That's so good. I mean, what makes me think is, again, betting on self, betting on vision, your faith, all those things, right? Because that repavement is not cheap, right? And we're betting on the come, right? We're betting on that something's going to believe in what you believe. But would you say that in leadership and in business, part of the battle is you got to believe greater than anybody else first, and then they'll come along the way and start believing with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think as an entrepreneur, it begins with trusting your gut.
Yeah.
And, successful entrepreneurs certainly work off the gut, but they also do their due diligence to make sure that there's a reasonable chance of success.
Right.
And so, that was a big swing when we decided to put millions into a repave. But ultimately, I felt like that was one of those things that I could show the entire racing world, all throughout the United States, North America, that these guys are serious about what they're talking about doing. And so it was a sacrifice and a big investment for my family, but we did it. And so that, was kind of paying it forward, and just like, okay, we were definitely someone that we're now taking seriously when we started talking about the future. And NASCAR, which is also a family-owned company, certainly huge scale, but ultimately it's owned by a family.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they're investing their resources on a regular basis. So there was really good conversation points along the way as to what we're trying to do that they could relate to dramatically, because they had been doing it for 75 years.
And they probably see themselves in you, right?
I think a bit, and as it turned out, I found mentors within my new partner, which was NASCAR, and that ultimately led to tremendous relationship with the family, a commitment to excellence, a commitment to doing exactly what we say we're going to, and we're the first and only new permanent NASCAR Cup Series race in the country in 21 years. Wow. At the time, 21 years.
Yeah.
That was in 2001 when we did the deal.
Yeah.
So 2021 and 2022 is with our first Cup race.
So what do you think you could tell? So when did you fall in love, real quick? When did you fall in love with racing? How old were you?
About 7.
Oh, so your whole life, basically.
Yeah, my whole life.
Yeah.
I've been...
Yeah. What got you into that?
I grew up riding dirt bikes, and at 7 would race anybody that would race me. And so it went from dirt bikes, and then I found a much safer path, which was, cars. And so that was really the path. I loved that speed, always have. But I like the challenge, and I think as business owners, you better like to win, because and I do. And that is something that is key to being successful.
Absolutely. Well said on that one. You got to want to win. But what do you think you could go back and tell that 16, 18, 20, 30-year-old Curtis, St. Louis kid, loved racing. Hey, kid, one day you're going to go across that river and you're going to own a raceway and have NASCAR and INDYCAR and NHRA there. Yeah. What do you think that kid would say?
Well, I would never have believed it. Because at the time I would never have had the patience to think that I could do what we've done. I would not have thought that was possible. But if I'm talking to a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid these days, I think that, there are so many different things out there that can cause kids to lose focus. And I think it's key to find your focus and then be patient while your passion develops into something that you can make a lifetime work out of. Easier said than done for a young person, but that patience is really important, to let it come to you. I can tell you at 18 or 25, I was not even in the realm of the wisdom that I found through my 30s. And so, be patient.
So it's funny you say it. So in 2002, I had a very successful first full year as a financial advisor right out of college. And 2003 was awful. Thought I made it, right? I was this young punk kid, wanted to be successful, wanted to win. I wasn't winning in 2003. And looking back now, 21, 22 years later, that was the best year in the worst year, right? I learned so much about myself, and that's actually when the circuits of success were created. That's hence the name of the podcast. I said, how do I take success, build a fence around it, not ever let it get too far away? And I said, your attitude, your belief system, your actions ultimately get your results. And there's a little fence in there, and those results ultimately create a new vision, right? So you probably would agree with that, I would assume. Is your attitude, your belief system, your actions, because you can't just sit on the couch and do nothing. Right. You had to show up to work every day, got you the results. Your vision has been recreated. So when you think about your vision now versus, say, even a 40-year-old or a 30-year-old Curtis, how has that changed in where you're at today?
Well, I think, the older you get, the further out you look.
Yeah.
And I'm, clearly, fortunately, when I got involved with the racetrack, I was not looking for some sort of immediate turnaround, immediate success. Success to me in the early days was getting to the next day. But with that attitude of, hey, the Lord's going to open the doors that I needed to be opened, and hopefully close the ones that needed to be closed. And looking at the day-to-day and that idea with that thought process, really helpful. I think to anyone in business is, hey, we want to have long-term plans, but trust the day-to-day through my faith. It's just I believe that if we continue to do the right things and look in the bigger picture, that generally things will work out. Certainly sometimes they don't work out the way you think, but they certainly, in our situation, worked out for the betterment of our community, and quickly pivoted from at the racetrack and the business proposition there from, hey, where are we going to be in 10 years or 15 years of, we're doing great things, given the opportunity to do great things in the community. And that created this tremendous group of people that are a part of our success. It starts with my team at the racetrack. It is not all glitz and glamour to work at a racetrack. You're talking about multiple 16-hour days in a row as we put an event on, outside, in the heat, in the rain, whatever's. So you've got a special group of people that want to be a part of that to begin with. And they're also been special and helpful in that they started to understand that they were a part of history and that they could see the role they were playing in history. So so much of our success has to do with that teamwork, the core that helped me accomplish what the dream was.
Yeah.
But along the way, so many other things that have happened, and so many other people who have just blessed us with their input. I look at Dave Stewart from Worldwide Technology, and the fact that our relationship started at an INDYCAR race, and we quickly became friends because we had so many shared passions and just certainly our faith. But Dave, one day as we were talking, Dave is a visionary and wanted to do what's best for the community, and certainly he saw what I saw, that we could utilize the racetrack as that shining light on the hill, so to speak, for an area that really, really needed it. And so one day he said, how can I serve you? Now, that's not a normal question in the business world, right?
It's not.
But that's what I got from Dave, and we've formed this partnership that is just it's unbelievable, and it's just ongoing on a regular basis.
It's amazing what they've built, isn't it? Their company.
Oh my goodness, yes. It's
incredible to have them in St. Louis as well. How would you say if I maybe kicked you out of your boardroom and I had 4 or 5 of your key employees in there? What would you say if I asked them what's his leadership style? What do you think that would be?
Well, I think for me, I'm a good listener. I try to be. Not always was I a good listener, particularly as we were talking about earlier. With wisdom comes those lessons, and I think being a better listener was something that I had to learn by feeling, not by seeing. And so I realized that was something that I could improve on. And so I think now it clearly is my leadership style is to listen. There's a lot of great ideas in the room, and but I'm not 20 anymore. I've been down the road a bit and have gained some wisdom. And so you take all of that input and then be prepared to make a decision, because as the leader, it'll be consensus on the ideas, but the buck still stops somewhere, and it's me right now. It's the racetrack.
That's right. And then you've talked about your faith a couple times. How does that play out for you in your life? Like, whether that's today or, this weekend, like how does it play out day to day?
So I think every day I just wake up and say, hey, what's in store for me? And so that's part of my prayer each day, is that I try to make sure that I'm open to whatever comes my way. That was really handy in 2012 when I'm trying to figure out how to run a racetrack. So, a racetrack is not just one business. It's not, selling tickets and getting people in. In any one day, I might be in the security business, the ambulance business, the cleaning business,
food business,
the food business, concession business, and anything else that comes your way. And so you just got to be ready to tackle whatever comes your way. And certainly, just the way that I believe is that I feel like each day I wake up, I'm refreshed, and here we go. Yeah.
And loving what you're doing.
Love it.
That's awesome.
Love it.
Was there a time that there was a risk that you knew, like this could go one of the other way? Obviously, the risk to sign the dotted line and buy a track is certainly one of them. But is there another defining moment for you in your career, and you look back and say, wow, I am really glad I took that risk?
Yeah, I think, you go back to those where there's a why in the road, and, we could have operated at a more basic level without striving for the next step and the next step and the next step and thinking big. And somewhere there around 2014, when I saw the success of the NASCAR truck race that came, I recognized that the relationships were forming with the right people throughout the industry to really shoot for the highest level. Mm-hmm. And really in North America, that is the NHRA, that is INDYCAR, and that is a NASCAR Cup Series race. And I knew there was no home run I could hit in one season that was going to make that happen. So we knew that we were going to have to put together years of success, and that success, not only great response to our events and fans coming, but again, demonstrating that we had vision. We were ready to do things that were outside of the box. We certainly do that. As a matter of fact, the racetrack for our Cup race we're pretty proud of this, and I'm proud of our staff that our Midway was voted the #1 Midway experience. Midway is what the fan kind of experience is when they come out in the country. And so other than, I'm going to have to put an asterisk on that, other than Daytona, which just had a sellout of 18,000 people.
The granddaddy of them all, right?
But so that was an important piece, was to start to see that, hey, we can think big, and so 2014 was that year where it's like, okay, I think if I do this, and I do that, we're going to stand a chance to be in a conversation to put together something really special.
Do you find, as an entrepreneur or leader, you see you're married and get kids, right? And yes. And so when you find that, so you got your family, you've got your businesses. St. Louis kid again, you're standing on the track. I remember the first one. I was there, and it was sellout crowd to NASCAR. I remember you're in the oval there, and said a few words. Do you have that moment where you slow down, pinch me moment, and have enjoyed it to say, wow, look at this. There's how many thousands of people here. Look what we've done.
Yes. There was one of those moments, and I remember how special it was, because we had worked so hard to make 2022 the debut, first ever NASCAR Cup race at the racetrack, something that was done well, that represented our region well, that actually from a logistics standpoint went well. And I was standing there with Dave and Dave Stewart, and the Star Spangled Banner had just played, and about that time, here comes the B-1 bombers coming through, and
gives me chills thinking about it.
Yeah, it was really special, and I got to stand with a man that I respect so much, and through just guys like Dave, and Dave more than anyone, we got to come together and watch that moment. Watching these planes go over, and we had the St. Louis Symphony playing, and it was. Also, by the way, voted the #1, pre-race show ever type of thing.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really something.
It was good.
Yeah, so those are little things like that. But yes, that was a moment where I was just proud of the fact that St. Louis did something very special.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, even the concerts before, the concert after. I mean, I think I stuck around for 2 or 3 hours probably on the track. Listen, I think it was Old Dominion, if I remember correctly.
Old Dominion, we've had a bunch. Last year's Riley Green was unbelievable. And, this year we're going to be doing all of that again. And, it's great to be a leader in that space. Again, we have a partnership with Dave Stewart and Worldwide Technology around. We have an event within an event. It's called our Confluence Music Festival, and that was the first of its kind. Where I think we had 32 artists that first year. We'll have that same amount this year. Several national touring acts, and no one ever goes to a Cup race and sees that. So we've had great success on that. So now we're adding that element to our INDYCAR race this year. So this year with INDYCAR, we're excited about it. INDYCAR is moving for the first time out of the month of August. It is moving to June. And so it'll be on Father's Day weekend in June. We saw that, very family friendly at the racetrack. It's an important part of who we are. And to have an opportunity for, sons and daughters to spend time with their dad, happens to be at a racetrack, that's going to be cool. So we're putting together a special breakfast to make that a memorable moment. Something that came to me years ago was, the tagline, memories that last a lifetime. And so with family, I remember those, and some of mine happened to do when I was 7 or 8 years old and went out to the racetrack back in its earliest stages before it looked anything like it does now. And I was able to see Evel Knievel.
Oh, wow.
All right, jumping school buses. That was memories that last a lifetime because I made one there with my mom and dad. And that's really what we're trying to do around INDYCAR this year, is to have those special moments. So we're going to have drivers and their sons, Roger Penske and his son, all the way through the spectrum of different folks that can enjoy a moment, often that goes past, on a Sunday because everybody's at the race. Well, this year we're going to try to make sure that everybody makes a memory there.
That's great. I love the tagline. What would I see daily habits for you if I followed you around? Jeff over here at the cameras followed you around, and we saw daily habits not before even the racetrack, right? That made you successful to give you the ability to do that. What are those habits that have been with you for a long time?
Well, just in the way that my life has been, I've always been, a multitasker. So I got a lot of balls in the air, and I think that's just a trait I think of many entrepreneurs. We're able to balance a lot of different things. Well, to do that, you better organize each day and make sure that each day you know what's in store for you. And in particular now, is I'm wearing a lot of different hats, and some days I get to be with great guys like you. So to me, you have to have that organization piece to keep it all in check and make sure that there's so many different constituents involved in what we're doing, but just a moment or two with each one means a lot. And to develop those personal relationships. So I take a lot of pride and time in making sure that I develop those relationships where I can. Takes organization to do that, and I would highly recommend that as soon as you start feeling that you've got more going on in a day that you think you can get accomplished, work hard to get it organized, and you'll find out you do twice as much.
Would you? I would assume you're going to agree with this statement. When you get to that and you're wearing all these hats and you're juggling the elephants, as the book says, is hiring great people, right? And believing in those people, but also hiring them maybe before you can even afford that person. Agree with that? Disagree?
Agreed. Absolutely agreed that you're not hiring a person to fill a spot. You're hiring another partner in your business, and the business is only as strong as that foundation that you make. So hiring people that collectively understand how to be successful. You got to have them that want to win as well. At least I'd have to have that, and also people that are committed to the vision and understand it. And so, as the leader, you want to certainly make sure you're clearly articulating what a win looks like. A lot of people in the business world will think a win looks like financial success. Not necessarily in my book. I think usually financial success comes along with meeting the goals that you have on target. So, the people are just make all the difference in the world, and they need to understand how they fit into the entire plan.
Wouldn't you? Another question. I shouldn't ask questions I say wouldn't you agree with, but would you agree that for that win to happen, sometimes, and most of the time, in my opinion, you're creating an experience, right? With these national touring people, the stuff outside, the different tents you can go to, the experience that you get to have, the Clydesdales are out there, the easy parking, right? We're creating an event, an experience. I think that comes first, then the money would come behind it. Fair?
Fair. I think, and that has become more and more prevalent as, in the general sports world. It doesn't matter whether it's football, baseball, basketball, hockey. They're all challenged by whatever else is existing in the world as a competitor to your entertainment dollar. And a lot of that now is on a screen in front of you, and people don't realize that. So you have to be on your game and making sure that when you have the opportunity to bring someone to whatever facility or whatever event you're promoting, that their takeaway is that, wow, that was great. I'm glad I invested my family's entertainment dollars in that. And if they don't come away with that feel, you've missed the target. Well,
you look at the NHL this week, and you look at the NBA this week. They had their All-Star game last night. They totally changed the platform of that and the experience. And I didn't watch it, so I don't know if it was good or not good. And then you look at the 4 teams that play each other in NHL, and the fights break out in 3 and 9 seconds. I mean, they're trying to create a different experience. But to go back to, you always say, I want people that win. If I were lucky enough to be interviewing you 10 years from now, what's that win for you?
Wow, I think at the highest level, we have set the racetrack up to be a fixture in the sports landscape. Happens to be motorsport, well after I'm gone. And that was something that came to my mind early on. Is the goal was to fix motorsports in our region, and that really meant developing it all to where it became something that was part of the fabric of this area. So, creating this lasting facility that racing being racing being a part of the fabric of the St. Louis region, and it being sustainable is the win.
Yeah. I love experiences. I'm going to ask you a couple of experiences at the track that
Sure.
You can share with us. But so I grew up, well, you can see I've got golf stuff all over the place, right? I grew up a golf fan. One of the races, I can't remember, is it probably from 2015, 2016, there was a race there, INDYCAR. I got asked to go, and they said there'll be a celebrity VIP person in our suite. And I'm like, okay. You probably know he was here. Maybe you don't. I've got a bottle of his vodka at home he gave us. Fuzzy Zeller.
Got it.
Was sitting in there. Did you know he was there?
I didn't know that Fuzzy was
so
there.
Fuzzy Zeller
I'd have been
was
up there with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Fuzzy was up there telling golf stories the whole night. I hardly watched any of the race. I apologize. But I'm like, holy smokes, there is this experience. I'm with this golfer, played golf my whole life, and it was just awesome. And so that, and then along with that first NASCAR, the concerts, the experience, we got to go down on the track and go back and look at some of the cars and just seeing it all go down, and then coming up and literally just seeing a guy from St. Louis. Did you say start your engines?
That year, that would have been 2017. No, and I honestly don't. I've never done it before.
Okay,
I've
maybe
never
this
done
year
it
you
before.
can.
That's
do it.
always we reserve that for a sponsor. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that would have been John Bomarito.
Okay,
who's
that's
been
right.
a sponsor
That's
since
right.
day one on the INDYCAR race.
So those are my experiences. You've obviously got much cooler, greater experiences. What are some of the best stories you've got that you'd like to share with people?
Well, there has been so many along the way. I mean, it's certainly, this is again early on, and I don't want to single out one. There's so many.
Sure.
But one of the more memorable ones was Dave Letterman was there with the INDYCAR race, and there is a show in St. Louis called Them Your People, and Gary is the host of that show. Gary carries wears like a king crown and has a scepter and walks around, and he is a dandy. He is so much fun. And so Gary, after the race, walks up to Dave Letterman and says, "Hey, can I interview you?" And so he has a show on one of the stations here in St. Louis, and it reminded me of the back in the old days. You remember this when there was Larry Bud Melman on and meeting the guy on the street. Well, here's Gary interviewing Dave Letterman right in front of us, and that was I loved Dave Letterman, and then I saw this going on. We were going to go stop it from happening. I'm
No.
like, no. This has got to happen here, and it was as I thought it would go. It was epic in this interview. But that would have been on the fun side of things. One of the more memorable, special moments was having Jackie Joyner-Kersee in. So she was the grand marshal of the first INDYCAR race, and so Jackie was in the pace car, and usually you only have one other person in the pace car, her and a driver, and I was driving, so I kind of got to do dual duty. But then I was able to put my kids in the back seat of the car.
How cool.
And so around we went, and the excitement that Jackie was showing, and let's just say she was squealing. That's the quote closest to the sound, but so authentic and so fun just to be a part of that. And part of that relationship that has been built now with Jackie is treasured for me.
Yeah.
And as we work together on all types of things, I know she's been on the podcast before. What an unbelievable person, and what a great ambassador for our area.
Phenomenal human being.
Yeah, phenomenal human being, and then to get to race her around the track was pretty cool.
She's
So.
like, I'll beat you on a different track, but she's like, not this track.
That's right. That's right.
That's great. So right now, you get your Christmas lights, you got your go-karts, which are, we had an event here for Visionary Wealth Advisors, which is cool for people, for our business leaders. Listen, I'm assuming you still do this.
Yes.
We rented out your one of the rooms in there. there.
Yep.
Food was catered. We did an all day. We had speakers come in. They spoke. We had some speakers inside of our firm. We had a great meeting. We ended it with the race cars out there that we get to drive, right? The go-karts.
Yeah.
Now, if you're like me and you can get car sick, I literally made myself sick. It was so fun. It was unbelievable. You go down that, how long is that stretch?
Well, it's probably an 1/8 mile long at least.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're going
wide open. Well, 50 something.
So I'd say 60 miles an hour, that far. I mean, you're flying.
Right.
And it's such a cool experience. So people listening, make sure you go there. Take your company there. It's a phenomenal experience. The Christmas lights, whatever. Brag about the stadium. But you got the racetrack. You got the lights, the go-karts. What else?
Yeah, so, just in the order of scale of things, we certainly have the big events that we've primarily been talking about today. But we operate about 320 event days a year.
Wow.
So there is always something going on. So at the drag strip, 2-3 times a week, there's something happening on the drag strip, and it might be, come out and you can bring your own car out and drive it down the drag strip if you want. You have to sign a couple of waivers.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. But you can do that, and then we have Midnight Madness, which is really geared towards, a younger crowd, and they come out, and it's much of a fun, just party scene as anything else, with lots going on, and the drifting. So we do drifting and all that kind of stuff. And so you start, looking through the year, and if you look at our schedule that's on the website, WWTRaceway.com, you'll see a schedule that it is just chock full with all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it is almost every day. So, we do runs, we have the drifting, we have all different types of groups that come through with different events. We have the import face-off weekend, which is kind of skewed toward import cars. We have Porsche events. We have BMW events. Yeah. There's always something going on if you look on the website.
Yeah, I love it. So kids, how old are the kids?
Our kids, so I have a daughter at 22 that just started her first month at NASCAR. So she's working in Charlotte. Got to see her in Daytona working as opposed to coming down with...
So you were just there 2 days ago?
Yes, I was just there.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, so that was neat. And then I have a son that's 19 in college now. So
this is my second time asking this question. We were talking about the other day at our Swing for Hope board meeting, is what's been the toughest or most stressful part of being a parent, do you think? At the ages, you look at newborn to now 22. Where are you at in that? Where would you say?
Wow. I think we're past, with the daughter that's 22, we're past the most stressful point. Son in college, freshman, we got to make sure that he's going back again next year.
Where's he at?
He's at Belmont.
Okay. Oh yeah, Nashville.
Yeah.
That's so funny you say that. I have a freshman as well. I have 4 boys. My oldest is a freshman at Mizzou, and that's why I said they invited him back for another semester, and we just want to keep getting invited back.
Right.
Just keep coming back.
Right. Well, that's exciting, and it sounds like you get a few more of those to get in place. But it's great. So we're, for the first time, as of about a month ago, we're kind of empty nesters, and that's a whole new thing for my wife and I, and we're happy to be where we're at.
That's awesome. So I do have one more question. Playoffs, they're coming, 2025. Give us a little lay of the land. What's going on there at the track this year?
Yeah, so we're particularly excited for 2025. NASCAR liked what we did in 22 through 2024, sellouts every year. And I got a call last spring, and they said, how'd you like to have a playoff race? And so I had to think about that for a millisecond, exactly. And so we're just thrilled about that. It's a vote of confidence in our market and what's been happening. The fact that we're going to be the second playoff race of the year, which is really great in that schedule, the NASCAR playoff schedule. And we are also now, Xfinity is coming back. So that's another huge piece. So not only did we get the playoff race, we now have Xfinity, which is the old Busch Series, coming back. And, both of those were something that certainly we're thrilled to have them. We didn't necessarily have to lobby for them, but I think that the effort has shown through, and so much of that goes back to the fans that are showing up and selling it out every year.
Yeah.
This year should be the biggest year yet. I mean, with Xfinity coming back and playoffs, it's going to be really neat to see all that come to fruition.
And I said last question, I apologize. This is the last question. Talk about the importance of the sponsorships and those companies that step up and help you do what you do.
Yeah, there are so many in St. Louis, and St. Louis is so supportive, so supportive, so philanthropic. I think we got to look back to one of our earliest sponsors with the Bommarito Automotive Group and how engaged they are. So now, not only do they sponsor the INDYCAR race, they also sponsor a car and own a part of a team in the Xfinity Series. So that's going to be a tremendous coming home for them to be able to bring their car to the St. Louis market at the Xfinity race. So I think you're going to see John Bommarito in a great mood come the September 6th and 7th. And I think, just in general, you're going to see that we're redoubling our efforts again to provide that fan experience. So stay tuned, but there'll be some more announcements as to who's playing, who's going to be in the concerts, what's happening on the Midway. So many great things there. And then I think as well, we're adding a music component to the INDYCAR series, taking a page out of what we're doing with the Confluence Music Festival. And we're also partnering with Illinois Downstate Tourism as the Route 66 100th year anniversary is happening. And so we are a part of that. Most people don't realize it, but Route 66 runs right past the racetrack. So we're going to be doing a concert series in partnership with the state on that. So a lot going on in 2025 to have fun with.
It's amazing.
It should be great for the fans when they come out.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing again, Curtis. Thanks so much for being with us.
Great to be with you.